Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I'm your host, Joey DeMeglio, and today I'm joined by Evan from Rangers Central. The beginning of the season just keeps getting better for the Rangers, not necessarily from the wins and losses column as they lost on Thursday to the Florida Panthers, but the Rangers announced a 7-year extension with Alexis Lafreniere today. Yes, Alexis Lafreniere, Lafranchise, Busfreniere, that guy, former first overall pick from 2020. 7-year extension. Man, oh man, this is a great thing. But first, Evan, how are you?
Could be. I mean, that at least helped a bit, but obviously with the Mets and last night's loss, things could be better in the sports world. But yeah, just dealing with that, with the fact that the Mets lost, trying to cope, and Rangers at least off to somewhat of a good start record wise. But yeah, last night was not great.
Oh wait, I forgot. I have a surprise for you. What's this? What's this? Came in the mail.
My man.
I have I have a cardiac cardiac Rangers hoodie here,
Cardiac
courtesy
day.
of Rangers Central. Let me put this bad boy on. Give me 1 second.
Cardiac day. Let's go. Free advertisement day. Yeah, plug day. Pause. That one I had too. This is like me like handing a jersey to him, it feels like.
Holy comfortable Batman. This is a major W. Oh, this is great.
That is.
I
I
got a new
appreciate the
hoodie to
purchase,
wear for
Joey.
Rangers games now.
I appreciate the
And
purchase, Joey. Love it.
free
Free advertisement
advertisement
day.
D. There we go. Matt's in the chat, of course. Well, I guess yeah, that's promoting him too because he's part of Ranger Central as well. So yeah, there you go, guys. Yeah, go to any one of Evan's videos and the link is in there. It's in there. Get your cardiac Rangers. Uh, I gotta get a good shot for the camera. Damn it, for the thumbnail. There it is. There it is.
A lot better
Yeah,
than what I received
go
in the
get your
mail.
cardiac Rangers merch.
Yeah, go grab it. A lot better than what I received in the mail, which was my Mets NLCS shirt yesterday, but it's fine. So we'll live with it. But yes, get your Cardiac Rangers merch. Not that we've had a Cardiac Rangers affair this season.
Thought about killing myself.
In Minecraft, don't demonetize them.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we could start with how the Mets just lost in the NLCS. It kind of looked like honestly, I had a pretty good feeling. Like once they won game 5, I thought they were gonna push it to 7 because I guess I just took it for granted that Minaya was gonna have a good outing, and he didn't even last 2 innings, right? He pitched into the 2nd inning, and after that, it was just terrible. Just he couldn't get any outs, and the Mets still the theme of the series was that they could not hit with runners in scoring position, and that was their own undoing. They lost the series. They were beaten by the better team, but they missed out on so many opportunities, man. Winker with the bases loaded, and what was that, the 6th inning? That was their last chance. Really, that was their last opportunity.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. And with the amount of opportunities they had in that game, it just was like, it made it 10 times more infuriating because they had game 7 right in their grasp. And you have to wonder if they got an extra inning from Anaya, if maybe looking back, they should have used Diaz for an extra inning. I don't know how much of a difference it would have made, but there's so many little things about that series that you could look back on and say, yeah, if they did this, maybe. But at the same time, I mean, they got their ass kicked in some of these games. But the thing is, at least you could chalk it up some of the mistakes, which they were big mistakes that Mendoza made. But at least I could sit here and say, okay, he's a rookie manager. It's not the end of the world, even though it would have been nice when you get that far to finish the job. But you could at least chalk it up to that because there was no reason to sit Winker in games 3 and 4. I mean, that was just terrible decision making.
Yeah.
I can't understand why Phil Maton got in there as much as he did. Can't understand why McNeil was the first guy off the bench over Winker on multiple nights. There are so many little things, but at the same time, like you said, I mean, Minaya just couldn't execute it all. That last start, and I was with you. I was so confident going into Game 6. I was like, okay, I'm honestly more worried about them winning a Game 7. I was like, with the way the bats looked in Game 5, and the fact that they're going against the bullpen, the fact that Sean Manaea is on the bump, I like the odds. I'm more worried about what they do in Game 7, but that just shows you can't get too complacent and too cocky and arrogant there. And unfortunately, that's what ended up happening. And it sucks that you had a lot of guys, too, that just didn't show up until later on. Like Alvarez didn't show up until the latter part of the series. Alonso was inconsistent. Marte was very bipolar, but
Hmm.
at the same time, that sums up this offense this season.
Yeah, 42 walks, 7 walks per game. Like the pitching also was a major letdown. The bullpen was taxed. As Matt said, the lack of the big hit killed them. Clutch deficient, I called them. Senga, when he was put in there, I thought that was a big mistake in game 1, but at the very end of game 6, he threw one. I think it was either a slider or his ghost fork, and Mookie laid off that pitch, and it was Senga's best pitch he threw in that entire series. I'm like, all right, there's no way they can win this, because this is indicative of what the Dodgers are doing. They were laying off good like pitches. They were out of the strike zone, but they knew they were balls. Like if that's me up there, I'm swinging at that thing every time. That's just what it boiled down to with the Mets, in my opinion, at least. And yeah, Winker should have been up ahead of McNeil, though. There was a couple instances where that was the case. I think in game 4,
Game 4, yeah, he hit one to
Iglesias,
the
right?
yeah, and Winker with 2 outs hit one to the warning track, and that would have been a run, which who knows if that makes a big difference or not. I mean, I would have been more comfortable there with doing that. And then with the way Alvarez was starting to at least find his game, I'm pretty sure it was game 4 where he was starting to find it. I would have been
Yes.
comfortable with letting Alvarez just go up there and swing the bat after Winker. But again, maybe that doesn't change anything. And like you said, the fact that these pitchers just nibbled the strike zone way too much over and over again, it's what cost them the series. And that's something that Matt and I talked about at nauseum during our podcast episodes on Bet Central. We were talking nonstop throughout the season. Okay, it's great that it works against a team like the Philadelphia Phillies, but it is not going to work against the Dodgers lineup. And you saw it. I mean, top to bottom, that lineup just absolutely annihilated them because they lay off those pitches. And when you do leave something for them, they're able to pounce on it and hit it. I mean, Max Muncy, the first like 4 games, got on base every at bat.
Mm-hmm.
Kike Hernandez was hitting home runs. And then you also had Tommy Edman, of course, doing so much damage. I mean, Freddie Freeman did play some games in this series, and you're still getting killed. I mean, I hate to say it, but because they were the better team, but it's just also like one of those things I hate to admit. But yeah, it's just unfortunate because it felt like you and I just talked about, that this was
Mm-hmm.
the team of destiny with the way
Yeah.
that they beat the Philadelphia Phillies, the way they beat the Brewers, the way they rallied in
Right.
Atlanta. It just felt special.
Look at all the competition that he had to go through. Like I was saying, like, man, this means something. When they beat the Phillies, to me, that felt like they won the World Series. Like, because that is like the Phillies have been the team to beat for a little while now. Like they beat the Braves that had won the division 2 years in a row. They've made it to the World Series. Like they were that up and coming team, and then they won the division this year. And the Mets beat them in 4 games. And the Brewers, like they were the lowest seeded team, got in on the last day, made it all the way to the championship series. That was, to me, like they're going to the World Series. Like I thought that was it. And of course it would have been against the Yankees, and the Yankees had an easy path to get to the World Series, of course, because as always they're the Yankees. But yeah, like Evan said, it felt like it was the team of destiny. Unfortunately, that just wasn't wasn't the case. I believe the Mets were 1 for 24 with runners in scoring position through the first 4 games of the series. That's not good enough. And all those games they lost were blowouts too. So, like, you could look at it and say, like, how could the Mets have won? They got blown out in that game, but, the pitching at times kept it close enough, then the bats came back, got runners on base, so they just could not get the big hit. That's all they needed was one more hit with the runner in scoring position. And like I said, the Winker one in game 6 with the bases loaded, that was the big opportunity to make it. I think it was like a 7-3 game at the time or a 6-3 game. That was the opportunity to make it like a 6-5 game, 6-6 maybe, or 7-6, whatever the score was, and they just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, and that was be the next point that I brought up, that, as much as we're sitting here and saying that, some of those games were blowouts, it's not like the Mets didn't have opportunities with guys on base to get the big hit. They had the opportunities, and as much as the score was blowouts at times, a lot of those games they just threw in guys like Danny Young and Jose Budo, which it sucks that a guy like Budo became so unreliable, and that's really how you lost the game, because the circle of trust became just
Mhm.
it became just Edwin Diaz when it came
Yeah.
down to it, and Stanek, but he was clearly overworked in game 5, and he just looked completely out. He looked gas in that game 6, and it's hard to fault him when he gave 7 outs in game 5 and only got 1 day off,
Yeah.
but you had to go all hands on deck there. But yeah, just you couldn't get the big hit. And the only other question that I have in terms of Mendoza's managing, because I completely forgot to bring it up when you brought up Senga, I can't understand what their plan was with Senga, because after game 1, in my opinion, they should have took him off the roster right then and there. And then they didn't. I'm like, all right, so maybe you're going to utilize him in game 5. And there was an opportunity where the Mets were up 10-2, and I was like, okay, bring Senga in, let him get some work. And it's a big lead right there. Worst case, you just bring someone else in if things get out of hand quickly. And at that point, then you would have definitely had to take him off the roster. But they didn't trust him there. And then he comes in game 6 and didn't look sharp
Yeah.
either. And maybe having an extra arm would have been
Yeah, they
useful.
coulda
And
used, like, Ottavino, even though I don't trust him that much, but
I would have went with Brazabon
that
even.
that I completely forgot he was there. I forgot the Mets acquired him because they just
Brazabon, Alex Young, either one.
yeah, they didn't use Brazoban too much down the stretch. Um, well, that's enough Mets talk. Like
Thank
there's a
God.
lot to talk about with them. I mean, you still have like the Alonso thing, like the extension, if he's going to come back. Is Juan Soto, where is he going to go? Then the Mets have a lot of money coming off payroll too. We could save that for other episodes of the show. But the big thing here, we got to shift right back into the Rangers. Alexis Lafreniere, man, what a turnaround this guy has had in a year. He goes from being, like, highly scrutinized by all of us, Evan and myself, more so Evan. I'm gonna call I know he was more on that side, but I'm there too. I'll be there too. 57 points, almost a playoff point per game player, and he's lighting up the 24-25 season on fire, to start. Um, and he's just got extended 7 years, 7.45 million per year. And I'm gonna go ahead and say this is well deserved for Lafreniere. Evan, what are your takeaways from this?
My takeaway is that I'll put my hand up first of all and say, I don't know what you're talking about. Nah, I'll take accountability. I shouldn't have ripped him in the preseason, but look, if we're talking about this deal in general, the thing that I'm trying to understand, I tweeted this exactly, and I will read my tweet over here. I'm trying to understand why the media is being completely ridiculous with this extension, because what I tweeted was Slavkovsky signed an extension worth more money with more term than Lafreniere did, despite Laf being the more proven player. Yet the media was completely silent when Slav signed that deal, and they applauded Montreal for getting their work done early. Instead, with Lafreniere, everyone's sitting, pointing, and laughing at the Rangers and saying they overpaid him. And I said, and this is another crucial part. Slavkovsky had 241 minutes worth of power play time last season. Lafreniere had 104. and Lafreniere
Oh,
still outproduced him point wise. And then I had Habs fans in my mention saying, well, he plays with point per game players like Panarin, while Slavkovsky doesn't play with those type of players. And to that I say, okay, but that evens out the argument here that one guy's getting more points from the power play, the other guy's getting help from his wingers. But my other counter to that is Lafreniere was the one driving the play of that line in the playoffs when Panarin was starting to fizzle out as the playoffs got deeper. And he's the second best forward on this team. And the fact that he's going to continue to output Mika at 5-on-5 and he's making less, this is a huge deal because I thought he was going to just surpass Mika with that with the AAV because I thought he's the better 5-on-5 player. He'll get that type of money, but I think he took a discount. We don't have sources to confirm that, but the way that I'm speculating that off of is why wouldn't he wait for the end of the season? Because if he wanted to cash in and get the most money, he would wait for the end of the season, especially after we saw the Blues get aggressive with offer sheets. Maybe it would get more teams to want to do that. And that's what I was afraid of too. But I think he wanted to stay, and I love it.
I think Saravalli said that it was the extra year of unrestricted free agency that they would buy into that made it so expensive. That's why Drury went with 7 instead of 8 years. And in which case, that's a smart move on his part. I think this is great work by Drury. I know how you feel about him, but none of his moves since the Buchnevich trade, like has he been, I would say, fleeced? Like he hasn't lost a trade. His big
Andrew
issue,
Kopp.
well, Andrew Kopp, like I was thinking of, I knew you were going to say that because I was thinking about it before. With the way the Rangers had developed their talent, what's to say that they wouldn't screw that one up as well? They wouldn't find a way to screw that up because they're screwing up Zach Jones right now. Somehow we'll get into that. I'm trying to find the tweet about the Saravalli thing. I just want to confirm it. It was like the extra year. Let's see. Oh, yes. Saravalli said the price to get to the 8th year and purchase one more year of UFA would have ratcheted up the AAV further to a place the Rangers couldn't reach now. So I think I'll say that he definitely that he took a little bit of a discount, but I think that 7 years instead of 8 definitely helped the Rangers in this situation.
I agree with that. I was honestly worried when I first read the Larry Brooks tweet and I just strictly looked at the AAV. I didn't even look at the 7 years part. I'm like, this is probably a 4 or 5 year deal if he's taking that type of money. I'm like, there's no way he's taking that type of money for 7, 8 years
Yeah, that would
because
have been bad.
yeah, I was thinking he's buying his way right into his prime to hit the open market. And that's what I was afraid of. But then I saw 7 years and I'm like, would have liked it, but it takes him till he's 30, 31, this contract. So
Yeah,
I'm not complaining because at that point you could give him another contract and it's really not a big deal because who knows what your salary is going to look like by then.
yeah, and you got to think like too. If it was 4 years, you got to think that Lafreniere just doesn't enjoy his time here and that he wants to get out. He's made it very clear that he likes it here in New York. And that's a huge thing. So the Rangers have taken care of him, and that's that's to be expected because he's the first overall pick. You better take care of him. You know, the last thing you want to do is look like a laughing stock like the Cleveland Browns.
Or like you did with your 7th overall pick that you counted on to be your #1 center, but we won't get into that one.
Oh, too soon, too soon.
Poor
Um,
Elias.
everyone expect my last thing here is like everyone expected 8 years over $8 million. Like you were saying, closer to 9 million before we started the show. Jury opted for 1 year less and significantly less on the cap hit, and not even $7.5 million. I think that's a really really good deal for the Rangers. We'll see what happens, what this means for Shesterkin and Keandre Miller, the next two big free agents that after this year that need to get extended offers. We'll see what happens. I certainly think that those two guys should get offers before Ryan Lindgren, and we'll talk about him shortly. But one thing I wanted to point out too is how this organizational mindset, it kind of feels like it's shifted. How long have we been complaining, Evan, about younger players not getting more opportunities to play over experience, but clearly over the hill players? And how long have we been complaining about the Rangers not locking up young, cost controllable assets long term? Feels like this week alone, the Rangers knocked out 2 birds with 1 stone because Victor Mancini is staying in the lineup even after Ryan Lindgren came back from injury, which none of us thought was going to happen. Uh, None of us thought that Mancini was even going to make the team out of camp. He makes the team. He's starting opening night with Zach Jones, and not only that, Adam Edstrom too, who we didn't think would make the team, even though he had an awesome, awesome camp, awesome spring training, too much baseball talk, awesome preseason. He makes it over, and they're playing him over Brodzinski. They're playing Mancini over Ruedel. They kept Edstrom up. They sent Rempe down. They waived Ruedel, and then they kept Mancini in the lineup, like I said, after Lindgren returned. And now we get this big long-term extension for Lafreniere. This is like great stuff to see. I honestly I cannot believe that I'm witnessing this, that the Rangers are doing this. Remember when they were playing Dryden Hunt over Lafreniere or Kakko or Barclay Goudreau in the top 6 over Lafreniere and Kakko with David Quinn and Gerard Gallant? Remember that?
Yeah, the only thing I will agree with is what Matt said in the chat. That them not playing Jones
I
over
was just
Lindgren
about to get
is,
into that.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to not jump into that when we're having that conversation because the thing that aggravates me with this whole thing with Lindgren is he's clearly not 100%. Why is he playing in October with a full face shield and a fractured jaw when you have so much young talent that is playing well enough and you were winning games without him?
Thank you. Thank you. It it all comes down to one question. Are the Rangers a playoff team without Ryan Lindgren? And the answer is a yes, a resounding yes, they are. They don't need Ryan Lindgren in the line. I understand. I love him. I love that he blocks shots. I love that he bleeds every time he's on the ice. I love that he's a nitty-gritty player. I love that. I don't hate Ryan Lindgren. It's just the problem with him is his body can't just doesn't take this too well. He's getting older now. He's not going to last 82 games. If you need him for the playoffs, play him closer to the playoffs. Play him in midseason. He should be platooned right now. I'm sorry. Like you got to prioritize this guy's health. This is not like every other player on your roster that you know is going to stay healthy. He is not one of those guys. He's a liability when it comes to health. And it's hard to admit it because I like him. I like what he does. He doesn't bring any offensive game. I know that. Defensively, I really appreciate what he does. It's just I don't know. I don't see why they're prioritizing why they're rushing Lindgren into it. Like you said, Evan, rushing him into games when he's wearing a full face shield, doesn't look 100%, having trouble moving the puck. Why is this a thing right now in game 7 or 8 of the season of 82 games? You're not going to get him to play 75 games or whatever it is, whatever the remainder is. He's not going to play in all of them. He shouldn't. I don't get it. I don't get
Yeah,
it.
and
That's very frustrating.
yeah, and it also like goes against the thing we were talking about, and mostly you saying that you want to see them experiment different things throughout the season and see what works, see what doesn't work, and to just throw Lindgren back in, it's like you're going back to what you already were doing, and now he's gonna play with Truba next game, which I don't even want to know how that's gonna go. And then it's gonna be Schneider Jones again, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Lindgren ends up back on the top pair in a short matter of time. But yeah, I don't get it. And I was very vocal this offseason about not wanting Ryan Lindgren back because I just felt there were so many free agents on the market that you could have got for either a similar price tag or cheaper. The guy that I really wanted was Sean Walker, who
Mhm.
signed for cheaper in Carolina. But now that you have young players that are capable of playing at the level they are, I mean, there's no reason really to have Ryan Lindgren around. And the thing that I'm getting in my replies is two different things. I'm getting both, well, look at the record with Lindgren versus without. Well, I could say, look at this here. Ryan Lindgren hasn't made that much of a difference if the Rangers were winning games without him. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other thing people are saying to me is they're probably just showcasing him for a trade opportunity. And to that, I say, I think a lot of teams would know what a 5, 6 year veteran would look like on a day-to-day basis in this league. And if they were trying to trade him, I think they'd be able to find a partner, especially with a team like Utah, who has a lot of injuries right now and could use help on their blue line. I will say this, though, that it could be true to an extent, because I could see a world, and I'm hoping that this is the case and it's not Jones moved, but I could see a world where they use Lindgren in a hockey trade. And the trade that I keep pointing to is the Matthias Ekholm trade, where Edmonton traded Tyson Barrie and a draft pick to get Matthias Ekholm. It stabilized their blue line, finally gave them a quality defenseman with Bouchard, and that was the guy they started to rely on. If anything, he was actually getting more minutes than Bouchard at first when he got there. If they could explore the market and find something of that value, I don't know if you're going to get an Ekholm caliber player, but if you find something like that, I think that's a win at the end of the day. And I wouldn't hate if Lindgren is in the lineup if that's truly the reason for it, because this team will make the playoffs either way. I'm more worried, obviously, about what they do in the playoffs. And if it means getting there and you still win games with Lindgren in and he gets moved at the deadline, then that's a different story.
Yeah, I don't. I did see that floated about the Lindgren trade possibility now that Utah's defenseman, who was it? That's out. Two of their
Marino and
defense,
Dursey.
Marino and Dursey, are out now. And it's not like for a week. It's a little bit long term. I think it's at least a month for both of those guys. So I did see that, but I don't think anyone's gonna see a Lindgren trade. None of the reporters are gonna see it coming. I if that happens, it's gonna be out of the blue. That's what I'm guessing. Back to the issue with like the Zach Jones thing and Lindgren and the organizational mindset. Matt brought up a good point. We're just lucky that Lindgren hasn't been put back with Fox yet, but with Keandre struggling right now, we'll probably see that soon. Yeah, that's another thing that I forgot to mention that is a good thing that they put Miller with Fox. I know Miller's struggling right now, but the numbers for that pair are just so unbelievably good. At least before the Florida game, um, I didn't see what they were for that Florida game, but before that, man, they were insane. Like the 5-on-5 statistics, go look them up on Natural Stat Trick. Very, very good. If if they could just keep applying that mindset to that one decision, Zach Jones or Lindgren over Zach Jones, this would be perfect. This would be like literally a perfect start to the season for the Rangers. I wouldn't be complaining about anything. But this is a really, really big head scratcher why they're not doing anything. So that leads me to the ice cold take. What did the Rangers do with Zach Jones? You brought up you said that they should trade him. I don't see the Rangers trading. I don't see Zach Jones requesting a trade out because I don't think that's in his character. Everything he's done up until this point has just been like accepting whatever decision the Rangers have made for him. All right, so Gerard Gallant, 2022, 2023. He starts the season with the team, barely plays. When he does play, he feels nervous with the puck. Then he gets sent down, works his way back up, becomes a seventh defenseman with Peter Laviolette, makes the team out of camp the following year. And now he's scratched again. I feel like he's going to accept this as whatever life has in store for him. And I don't think he's going to ask out. What do you think, Evan? Do you think he's going to ask out, or do you think he's going to just stay as the seventh defenseman?
If he got sent down, he 1,000% would have asked out, in my opinion. But now I don't think he will. And the only reason I would advocate in any regard for a Jones trade is if they're doing it because they are getting an offer they can't refuse and they're cashing in on a guy that they're not going to play anyway. Because it's very infuriating that you have such a good piece for your blue line that it should be in the lineup every night is probably I mean he's better than Lindgren, better than Truba as well, and I know that it's different sides with you know Jones being left shot, but regardless, fits what you need, especially in that Florida game. He was so missed in that game.
Mm.
But if you're not going to utilize him, then it might just be time to look in another direction and just flip him to get pieces to get part of the lineup or help you for the lineup that you're going to roll out there. Get pieces that will help you win in the playoffs. And I would hate it because I know he would thrive elsewhere. But if you're not going to play him, then what are we doing here?
I'd almost rather, if you're gonna trade Jones, I'd rather do what you just said, trade him for a guy that's gonna help you win right now. But if you trade someone like Lindgren, I feel like you need to trade him to recoup the assets that you've lost from like the Smith trade, the trade deadline deals, like the mid-round picks, seconds, thirds, picks like that. I'm not really prioritizing like prospects, whether they're NHL ready or not. Um, I mean, if you have a good prospect in like a Lindgren trade potentially, yeah, okay, I would take a look at that. But I mean, my thing is recouping the assets. You have to do something of substance like with when it comes to asset management here because the Rangers have used a lot of draft capital. They've expended a lot of draft capital without giving up any of their big farm pieces to get trade deadline fish. Uh, and the Rangers are running out of that. They're running on fumes here. I don't know how much I don't think they have a second round this year or next year.
They don't have one till 2028.
Yes, so that answers that question. So the Rangers are going to have to spend big at if they're going to make an upgrade at this deadline, a significant one, they're going to have to give up like a first round pick or maybe the 2029 second round pick if teams want to have any value in that. But
Hoffman,
Othman, Perot, your guys
Berard.
like your minor league guys have to, eventually be used as trade assets. You can't hold on to them forever. Can't hoard the prospects. Prospect hoarding. You can't do that. So to me, I think the Rangers should move on from Lindgren because this reminds me a lot of the Girardi Yandel Stahl situation. And I know those I was looking back on it today, and Girardi and Stahl were already under contract before Yandel came to the Rangers. But when Yandel came to the Rangers, he had 1 year left after he was acquired. So he had that half season with the Rangers after the deadline, and then the entire 2015-16 season before he became an unrestricted free agent, where they traded him to the Panthers, and he outlived, uh, in terms of production, outlived both Stahl and Girardi. I know Stahl played longer, but Yandel was the way better point producing defenseman, the way better defenseman. He lasted a lot longer. Why? Because he wasn't a physical stay at home defenseman. He was an offensive defenseman. And you have that kind of situation with Jones, a guy who has never played in the NHL pretty much, and a guy like Lindgren who has logged a lot of miles in a short amount of time. You know what he is, and you know he's probably not going to last that long in terms of production. Like the guy's there's only so much a guy's body's going to take. That's what I'm looking at as. So I think you got to cash in on his value while it's still high. Otherwise, you're just going to buy him out if you extend him. If they extend him, that will be I think that this might be my ice cold take. If the Rangers end up extending him, that's a fireable offense. I think the Rangers should fire Drury right then and there.
I second that notion. I would have seconded that notion if it was about anything, pretty much. So, but yeah, especially that it feels like it's honestly going to come down to deciding between Jones and Lindgren. And if they fuck this up, I will be very pissed off because this should be a layup, but who the hell knows with this team? Because like you said, I mean, we've seen it before. It wouldn't surprise me if we see it again, but this would be a terrible mistake if they went the route of keeping Lindgren for the long haul instead of Zach Jones.
It's like an emotional decision too. I feel like Drury. It's got to be a tough. It's a tough decision. Like I understand that. Like I wouldn't. We as fans, like we're able to filter it out. Some of us are at least. I know there's a lot of fans that would die for Lindgren, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying like you shouldn't do that. And you're wrong for feeling that way. I'm just saying like it's hard for some people to make that decision. Not maybe not so hard for other people. Like Evan is ruthless, so he's able to just rip the band-aid off. Like he would be able to do that. Like, no, Lindgren, I can't take you anymore. Get out of here. But for me, it would be like I'd be more like Peter Brand trying to cut the player in Moneyball. Like you're an important part of the team. We have to make decisions that are best for the team. You know what I'm talking about. And then would you rather take a bullet to the head or 5 to the chest and bleed to death? That kind of situation. I don't wanna I would be that kind of general manager. I'm soft.
Yeah,
We
that's
Yeah.
right. You got to be cutthroat to win. I mean, we see it all the time, and it's looking like Drury being cutthroat. He should take notes further from his own self that being cutthroat with Goudreau and Sam Carrick, who I absolutely despise the signing of. Holy crap, is he proved to me wrong thus far?
Damn, he looks
And
good, man.
yeah, and if only Drury just that Darren Drager report about Truba yesterday drove me up the walls. The fact that
20
that broke mid
teams.
game.
Yeah, if you missed it, Darren Drager reported that 20 teams were reportedly in on Truba over the summer. But the report was that he wasn't going to he wasn't gonna go to any of those teams if he got traded there? That was the report from Brooks, right?
Yeah, and people were saying that that whole thing was made up, and I'm like, all right, well, to each their own. I mean, we'll see if we end up getting more details. And now that we have that detail, I I don't know how that's not grounds for a contract termination, but I don't get how that even happened. That's just even more head scratching to me. And the fact that it happened during yesterday's game, with the way yesterday's game went too, only drove me even more insane yesterday.
Well, you know me, I'm not gonna sit here and look at the negatives. I'm gonna go ahead and take a shift and look at the positives here. The Rangers 5-on-5 wise, man, this is just unbelievable how their stats what their stats are this season. So I went back and I looked at the last 5 Stanley Cup winners, like their regular season 5-on-5 stats. This took a little bit of time because for some reason Natural Stat Trick didn't have per 60 stats for um 2020, 2021, and 22, 23. I had to calculate those myself. So I don't know the rankings for them. But the Stanley Cup winners, their numbers are all in the same ballpark, the same range. So at 5-on-5, the Lightning in 2019, 2020, they were first in goals for per 60, 2.95. Goals against per 60, 2.22. That was sixth. Expected goals for 2.48. That was seventh. And scoring chances for at 29.05. That was third in the league. The range for goals for is 2.5 about 2.5 goals for per 60 to 3.04 per 60, which was the Colorado Avalanche in 21-22. Goals against, you can't have 2.25 less than that. You want to be allowing no more than that per game. I would say like 2.5, 2.25. The Florida Panthers goals for per 60 last season at 5-on-5 was 2.45, which is ranked 22nd in the NHL, below the Rangers, which is crazy because the Rangers are notorious for being bad at 5-on-5 statistics. You know why they won the Stanley Cup? Goals against per 60. 1.88 goals against per 60. They were allowing less than 2 goals every 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Second, which is crazy to the Winnipeg Jets. No other team in that 5-year span had less than 2. That's insane. And the Panthers also had almost 30 scoring chances for per 60. If you want to look at where the Rangers are right now, they fall right into that ballpark. Goals as of Wednesday in 24-25, the New York Rangers, goals for per 60 at 5-on-5, 4.25, first in the NHL. Goals against per 60. I thought this was going to be pretty high. It was actually really, really low. 1.49 goals against per 60 at 5-on-5, second in the NHL. Expected goals for per 60, 3.95, first in the NHL. Scoring chances for per 60, 5-on-5, 34.41. That's 34 scoring chances every 60 minutes, second in the league. The big issue with the Rangers, in my opinion, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, based on the eye test, they give up a lot of chances, and the stats back it up. Scoring chances against per 60 at 5-on-5, the New York Rangers, 30.8. That is fourth most in the NHL. So, offense is outstanding this year. Outstanding to start. It's only 1 month, but man, you could not be doing any better here. Goals against, defense, big issue. That was their undoing last year. Remember the rush defense, the odd man rushers and stuff? I have a feeling that's the same thing here. What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, I thought this was gonna be a positive only segment, and I was gonna be the biggest asshole and rain on the parade here, but yeah, you're spot on that the defense once again is the issue, and this is where I do worry. I'm worried that they're sacrificing their defense for offense a little too much. And I get that fans are going to say, well, you have Igor back there, so you could trust him to make the stops when you need him to. That's not how this works, because when we saw yesterday, once they fell behind, and this is another issue with this team, they're going to chase games if they keep starting as flat as they do. I mean, yet again last night they started very flat, and I would say that's the like sixth or fifth straight game now that they came out flat, because Pittsburgh, they were good in the start there. And yeah, I mean, ever since then, it's been a struggle, but they have to start these games better, because once you have to chase against a team like Florida, especially, it is going to be difficult to get back into these games. But yeah, they just play way too open. The neutral zone play is very sloppy. I mean, last night was really a prime example and an eye opener to me of
Third
okay,
period sucked.
it got progressively worse this
Yeah.
game as it went on, and the third period, I'm watching the Florida Panthers put on a clinic in the neutral zone, and on the penalty kill, you just watch the way they stack the neutral zone, stack the blue line to deny zone entries from the Rangers power play, where the Rangers, they're always dropping back to the they're always drawing back to the hash marks before they start applying pressure in the D zone. And it's like, what happened to the 1-3-1 that we saw last year in October? Because if they were doing what they're doing right now, 5-on-5 offensively right now, while playing that 1-3-1 defensively, this team would be, they'd be undefeated, and they'd be a nightmare to play against for every single team. Because if we are going to talk about the good, every single line pretty much, except for that first line, is generating opportunities offensively. And it sucks that against a very quality team yesterday, we didn't see it as much, but the point still remains. They have to tighten up the play in the neutral zone and D zone, and the puck movement's also been sloppy a couple times, like the Mika turnover yesterday, brutal. And then some guys individually, I mean, you're just getting up and down play from them,
Miller
which
looked really bad in the first shift of the game yesterday. Like
that's
that
what I
was
was gonna say. Miller
awful.
has been the most up and down player this year, and even in general, like, the first line, which we said, okay, they're pretty good defensively, they have not been up to par on either side of the puck, which they're generating more offensively than they did with Rosovic, which, I mean, I would expect that, and
Yeah,
I hope,
good.
but they're not as good defensively this year. And then the one line that's producing the most offense is also allowing the most chances, which is that second line. Third line, and the fourth line, I mean, the bottom six, no complaints
Oh
right
my
now with
god,
them.
man.
They are,
Nuts.
this is the best bottom six I've seen the Rangers have in such a long time. I mean, maybe since 2022, when they did have after the deadline, like the kid line as the third line, and they had that fourth line, and maybe the year after where they had VC, Mott, and who am I forgetting from that fourth line? I don't know
Goudreau.
why. Goudreau, yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, the bottom six is playing unbelievable right now, and I'm glad that's happening. The problem is they got stapled to the bench yesterday in the third period, most of them.
Yeah,
So
because they're chasing the game. That's why. And that's what
yeah,
Laviolette does when he chases the game. Yeah, I have faith that Laviolette could clean it up too. I think the Rangers. I wish they would play more. Like, you remember the third period in that first game against Detroit, the home game, the first of the home and home. Will
yeah.
Cooley came out in the second period and was talking in the intermission report and was saying that they needed to tighten it up defensively because they allowed way too many chances in that period. Loud chances, as Laviolette likes to call it. And then they just shut it down, gave up nothing after that. They need to play more like that. They need to. It's going to be difficult, but if you want to win it, listen, I'm done. I'm done being oh yeah, let's compromise here. If you want to be a championship team, you got to be able to do. You have to be great on both sides of the puck. You can't like compromise one to make the other one better. Like, you can't be great and good and then like make both good. No, I want both sides of the puck to be great. The offense right now is amazing. I want the defense to be just as good, like amazing as well. I don't want the offense to go down to being great and then the defense going up to being really good. I want them both to be at that same level. It's going to be difficult to maintain for the entire season, but you got to at least go on stretches where they're both like unbeatable, because that's how you're going to win the Stanley Cup. You have to be way better than these other teams, and Rangers are still not better than Florida. Mind you, they didn't even have Barkov in the lineup, and their defense is completely different. They have 8 defensemen on their roster. They were playing I think they were playing a defenseman as a forward yesterday. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not
What was that
sure.
the other game?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
This Matt saying the bottom 6 is playing like the 2014 bottom 6. I was
Yeah.
gonna say that too. Yeah. That was our most complete team in terms of balance. It's all about balance. The most balanced teams always win the cup. Perfect example. Those Vegas Golden Knights, man. 2022-23. I'll read you their stats. 5-on-5 regular season, 2.69 goals for per 60, 2.32 goals against per 60. Those are the magic numbers, man. The mid twos, like 2.5 goals for, and like the low twos, like 2.25 to 2.3. Those are the amount of goals you want to be giving up at 5-on-5. No more than that. Expected goals for 2.64. They're getting into good areas, and they were getting a lot of chances. Scoring chances 4 per 60, 27.74. But again, you can't sacrifice your defense for your offense. I don't know if it's these guys, the forwards are being lazy or whatever. Maybe I have to get Mike Kelly back on the show to get into details about that, or Corey Schneider.
I mean, you could visibly see at times too, like as much as we were gassing up Lafreniere, and as much as I still love what he's doing offensively, like he looks lost at times in the D zone almost, and it's like all these guys at points are just puck watching, and it is making the defenders honestly like as bad as Miller has been at points this season, as bad as Trouba has been at points, Mancini, and pretty much everyone honestly on that blue line, the forwards are not doing any favors to help one bit. Like the only line is really that third line that is helping. Like Philip Hedel, holy shit, the two-way game that he's playing right now is
Yeah.
unbelievable. And I love that we're seeing that from a kid who had the concussion issues, and I had worries about playing afraid because of that. He looks like he's just going full for it, and he looks unbelievable driving the play on that line, and is the first guy on the back check out of the forwards, getting in the D zone, breaking up plays. Like that's what this
Yeah.
team needs.
He
And then the
he
fourth
used to
line too.
suck at back checking. He used to never back check, and now he's doing it
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. And you need that from your third line centers to win. And then you're seeing it from, I mean, Edstrom's not the center of that line, but Adam Edstrom, I mean, how many times is he on the back check right away and making unbelievable plays? Carrick even too. Like the top six needs to take a page from the bottom six in that regard. They have to. And as
Yeah.
much as I want a top six that scores a lot of goals, they got to find a balance there. And that's where I do maybe think there could be one lineup tweak that I would make, but it's also risky with how the third line is playing. I wouldn't hate the idea of reuniting Hedel, Panarin, Lafreniere again that we saw last year,
Hmm.
and putting Trocheck with Cooley and Kakko. I think you'll still get some offense there, and even if you're not, you're gonna get good defense from that line. And at least it evens out the defense a bit more on that second line, because right now they're just allowing way too much.
Yeah, I kind of see that. Like right now, for a right now move, maybe not long term, but like even with Trocheck there, Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, it's still allowing a lot. Like they get you the most chances, but this is the game you play with that line. It's a high risk, high reward line. They take a lot of chances, but they also give up a lot of chances. So even with Trocheck there, who's a great two-way player, the fact that they're not getting as much defense there is a little concerning. But maybe you try Hedel there, who's looks great on both ends of the ice. I mean, I think we got to talk a little bit about how great of a start Hedel has had to this season. He's picked up right where he left off after last regular season. If you remember last regular season, I think he had 6 points in 6 games, all assists, no goals. He was playing great on the line with Panarin and Lafreniere in between those 2. It was he was doing amazing, and then he gets the big injury at the game we went to, of course, um, and then he comes back in the playoffs and obviously was just a non-factor because it's very difficult to just get rushed back in and be an immediate impact, but this season, he's come off guns a-blazing. Guy, the 200-foot play he made pretty much in the Montreal game on a penalty on a power play. They were, what was it? Who was it on Montreal had the someone had the puck and trying
I
to
forgot
kill.
who it was.
Yeah, I forget who it was, but someone on Montreal had the puck and was, trying to kill time on the penalty, skating the puck into the Rangers zone, maybe going for a chance. Hedel hustles back on the back check, strips him of the puck, sends it up the ice, and then goes all the way down to the net front and taps in the puck, and he scores a goal. Right? Like that he made a great defensive play and then he scored the goal. Like that was just he was all over the ice in that Montreal game. He was the best player. Uh for the Rangers, period. Best skater. That was just it was so good to see because like you said about the head injuries and worrying if he's going to be the guy to get them over the hump. The third line was the big question this year. Are they going to be able to to score goals unlike last year after the deadline? They haven't even allowed a 5-on-5 goal yet. They're one of the only lines to do that. Like, I think them and, Boston's line, and then maybe 2 I think 2 other lines Mike Kelly said, haven't allowed a 5-on-5 goal against this season, which is nuts. And they're scoring too.
Yeah, that's the thing that's great. And that's where that's what's really infuriating more about how they're not getting that type of play from all the other lines, because usually that type of thing is contagious and you see flashes of it, but it's just not consistent enough. And I do think I mean, we're beating a dead horse with this one, but Mika's play early on thus far is really dragging that line down as a whole.
I thought the
Because the
Montreal
second line,
game, I thought he was a lot better, but yeah, mostly yes.
the first period of that Montreal game, we saw like vintage Mika. I was like,
Yes.
where the fuck has this been? Like, why is this not a consistent thing? And then it just tailed off as the game went along. And I'm like, all right, but he still at least played a respectable game. And then he follows it up this past game. And I mean, Barkov in his slippers and robes gave a better performance than Mika did. Just it's just infuriating. Shout out Carson for that quote. I can't take credit for that one, but
I'm just imagining Barkov with, like, a cup of coffee and in a
Slipper
robe,
robes in the
like
hotel lobby. Yeah.
yeah, just sitting in the hotel lobby, like, "Yeah, I'm still better than you."
But yeah, like he looked he yet again just looked outclassed in a game that he can't be outclassed in, and that's really the issue, because the second line, you expected the poor defense from them. Like, that's something we're kind of accustomed to. But one of Mika's strengths is the fact that he's been at least respectable on the other end of the ice. If albeit he's not going to score at 5-on-5, at least that line was doing a good job neutralizing the other teams. Now they're not even doing that, and that's where we have major problems, because that's why you're seeing them play slop, among the fact that some of the defensemen are having some terrible reads. Like, there was a couple of terrible reads by Keandre Miller yesterday in the neutral zone. Mancini too had a couple of terrible reads. It's just, but yeah, that line in particular has been a problem, and I could tell you it's not Kreider and it's not Smith that are the problem.
Yeah. I think you're kind of nailed it with like the forwards not helping on the back check. I think you got that there. Trying to see what else we could talk about. I think we hit everything here. I mean, the Rangers were, from a results perspective, this is nothing new. Like, they always show up in the regular season. They get the wins. Again, nothing new. They've done this the past few years. It's just we're not going to settle for that. We're not, and we're also not fake fans for uh for criticizing even though they're winning, and fans booing when the team's not performing well, even though they haven't lost the game in regulation. Yeah, you kind of have to, because you spend a lot of money to get to those games. Evan spent God knows how much money to get to Citi Field to sit in the sky to watch Ohtani hit 2 moonshots to him that he couldn't even catch. So yeah, you gotta let him know how you feel about a performance when it's not up to your standards.
Boo 'em.
Just because boo 'em. Boo their asses. Boo their fat asses. Yeah, you should. You should. Because, you're trying to win a Stanley Cup, not a regular season banner. We already had people from Spit and Chicklets making fun of the Rangers for regular season banners, even though all the other teams in the NHL do it, right?
I think
Just
it's just the fact they tweeted about it too.
y
It's like,
but we're not here for brownie points. We're here to win this freaking Stanley Cup. You don't win it in October. You can't lose it in October either. So everyone just shut the fuck up. That's all I see online is just, "Oh, they'll be fine. They'll be fine." And then I see another person say like, "This team fucking sucks. Trade everybody." Rah, 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 rah. I'm tired. I'm tired of it, man. Can I just like say like, all right, fine. The Rangers lost this game. Go to bed, move on, turn the page. Next day, here we go. All right, we're getting ready for this next opponent. Who are we playing? Who are we playing next? I don't know who we're playing. But whoever we're playing, we're gonna beat them. I don't care who you are. We're beating them. If we don't do that, we're gonna reset. We're not going on a losing streak. Screw that. You take it one game at a time. Jesus Christ. I'm sick and tired of it. Oh, this is not gonna happen in the playoffs. Blah blah blah. We're in October here. We have like 70 freaking games before we're in the playoffs here.
that's my favorite thing though about all this is the difference. Because here's the thing that this is how I feel. At least be consistent with your takes, but it is hilarious to me exactly what you're saying. How when they win and it's October, they're beating the Detroit Red Wings. It's this team's winning the Stanley Cup, and then they lose, and everything's done. And listen, at least stay consistent with your takes. If you're gonna stay consistent, then fine. If you're gonna be someone that says they're winning the cup in October and you're not getting mad at losses, fine. Then fair to you. You're staying consistent at least, but you can't do the flip flopping here. I can't be about that.
This is the best 5-on-5 the Rangers have looked in my entire life. They don't play like this. They don't play like this. And I'm not sold yet on the fact that the Rangers are going to win the Stanley Cup. No, I'm not doing it. It's freaking October 25th. It's not time for that yet. Baseball is still going on. It is not time for that. I got enough to worry about with the Jets and the Mets. I'm not worried about the Stanley Cup right now. I'm sorry. You got to get me stay healthy. That's it. Stay healthy. Stay healthy, and then we'll talk. You get
Stay
to the
healthy,
mid-season.
develop good habits.
Yeah. What was I just gonna say? I was gonna say something. I freaking forget, man. There's too
Uh-oh.
much stuff going on in my head. Oh my god. Uh, I don't even know D. Uh,
Lost day.
lost D.
Brain fart day.
Yeah, yeah, imploding D. Yeah. Well, it was a good way to end it with the nice little rant about fandom. You always got to have it though. Uh, the only way we're gonna win though is if the fans are together. I live for the day we're all gonna like hold hands. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. Um, everything I had in that video of how Rangers fans watch games. It was true. It's true. That's how we talk. That's how I used to be like that. I used to be like that. Yeah, I have a good feeling about this team. I said it a couple of years ago. I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is gonna be the team, man. They're gonna overcome this adversity. Trooper throws his helmet. Yeah, now we're going to the promised land. I had my rose-colored glasses on, and then I look like an idiot. Take the rose-colored glasses off and watch the games. It's so much better that way. I'm telling you. That's I was genuinely shocked when Pete Alonso hit the 3-run home run. I would not be like that if if I had my rose-colored glasses on. Oh my gosh, all is great in the world. I would not be like that. Uh,
United day.
United D.
We're all in this together day.
Yeah, wait, isn't that the Rangers thing this year?
Oh yeah, wait, what is their new
Let's
thing?
go together. Is that what it
It
is?
takes everyone.
It
That's what it
takes
is.
everyone. It takes everyone. Yes,
It
it
takes
takes
everyone. Yet we have like the most civil wars out of any fan base I've ever seen in my life. Like, I'm a part of Mets Twitter actively, Knicks Twitter a good amount. Everyone's kind of like on the same page. Rangers Twitter, it's just everyone throwing freaking pitchforks and torches at each other, and it's just a civil war constantly. It takes everyone, but you're not
Oh,
getting
you
everyone.
support this trend. Everybody unfollow this person because he supports this trend. Oh, this guy supports that trend. Everybody block this guy because he follows that trend. That's what Rangers
Everybody
Twitter is.
block this guy because he doesn't want Igor extended. Everyone block this guy because he does want Igor extended.
Yeah, can't win. It takes everyone. It takes everyone. Remember that, Ice Cold Takes fans. And we'll see you guys next week for another episode of the show. Bye.